Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of the Where Are They Going podcast. I'm with Eastern Connecticut State University senior John Ahern. John, say what up.
What up, everyone? How we doing?
Let's jump into these questions like we always do. When did you start playing golf, John?
So I started when I was around 10, 9 or 10. My dad introduced me to it. But pretty much, yeah, I mean, he was a big golfer himself, and I just watched him growing up. He eventually took me to the course when I was, like I said, around 10, and then got into it from there.
And why did you pick over any other sport?
So I actually started playing baseball first before anything else. When I was like 5, 6, really young. But by the time I got to like late high school, golf really became the one that I focused on the most. And the reason for that was just one, I found success with it, and you can't beat doing something that like you're pretty good at. But two, the whole mental aspect of golf is just something I've never experienced before, because in other sports like basketball, baseball, football, it's a big part of the game, but I feel like golf, playing all those sports, it's a much bigger aspect of the game, and I really like that part about it.
What do you do when you're not golfing?
I do a lot of things. I like to play basketball. With COVID and everything, that's kind of tough. Gyms are closed, or you got to wear masks. I love watching sports. I watch the NBA every single night. I'm a huge Knicks fan, you know. But yeah, I mean, I'll do whatever. Bowling, love bowling. But pretty much, I just love to hang out, compete with friends in whatever it may be, video games, sports.
Biggest influence off the golf course?
Off the golf course, probably say my parents. My dad influenced me to get into golf, but more the way to act on the golf course, because golf's a big etiquette game. So he taught me like be respectful, to the other players. You can't be loud. You can't be walking in people's lines or moving while they're hitting, stuff like that. And my mom, she just really taught me lessons of like hard work and really driving and working for something you want. And the only way to get something is to work for it. There are no shortcuts.
I love how the golfer says that his mom taught him about lessons in driving. I thought that was kind of funny as a little golf pun there.
Yeah.
Now, who's your biggest influence on the golf course?
So my dad did get me into it and influenced me a lot. And I would say, I probably would say he is my biggest influence. But I wrote down my golf coach, George Taylor, because throughout my 4 years of playing high school golf, he really like taught me about the mental game, like we were kind of talking about earlier. But also just like so much about golf I didn't even like realize, whether it was history, past golfers, whether it was techniques, this and that, strategy on the golf course, rules. He, I think, influenced my golf game more than anyone else.
And who would you say are some golfers that you model your game after?
Well, ideally, I would say Tiger Woods, because in my opinion, he's just at his best. He was the best player, aside from all his, especially now, off the course issues. But on the course, I don't think anybody ever did it as well as he did. But realistically, because I don't think anybody can mimic him, I try to play like someone like Rory, because I think our games are similar. Obviously, I think he has the best swing maybe ever. But to try and emulate that, I think is a good bar to go to. And he's someone kind of like me, where they're good at like the long game, driving and irons and stuff, but his short game isn't the best, and neither is mine. So I feel like we're similar in that aspect.
As of the day that we're recording this is the day after Tiger Woods got into that car crash. So get well soon, Tiger.
Yeah, absolutely. That was crazy when I heard about that.
Favorite moment from golf?
So There's actually this one time I was at a junior tournament. This was during my high school career, but it was in the summer, so off season, you could say. And I shot like a 77 or a 78 for 18 holes, which now I take that now probably because with the snow and everything, I haven't been able to play much. But back then, like I was in form, wasn't too happy with it. The score was almost not good enough to get me in. I ended up being in a playoff with like 7 other golfers for that final spot in this. It was a qualifier, so it was for the final spot in a tournament. And the first hole, playoff hole, was a par five. And I remember I hit my drive in the left rough. It was pretty far out there, not the furthest out of all the kids, but it was in the rough. And I was like, oh man, this stinks. But I whacked it up in the green. I remember nailing like a 25-foot putt for eagle. And I qualified for the tournament, ended up beating the 1 seed because it was like a head-to-head tournament the next round, and then lost to this other kid. But yeah, that was pretty crazy for me because I didn't do a lot of junior tournaments. And I remember just driving home, like blasting my music on the radio. I was so happy the day when I hit the putt. But yeah, good times.
Yeah, that sounds like a crazy experience.
Yeah, it was. Let me tell you, something else.
Take me through the college decision process.
So at first, I was actually looking at other schools that weren't like East, because so Eastern didn't have a golf team when I first applied to it, but they have like one of the best phys ed programs in the state, and not in the country, but in the area. And I'm a phys ed major, so I ended up choosing Eastern because of the educational side of things. But I looked at schools down south actually, one in South Carolina, a couple in Florida, because just being able to golf year round, I thought would have been fun and really beneficial for my game. But at the end of the day, my family and I decided that the education was more important than the golf, and that I could, still golf, just it wouldn't be competitive. And then this past year, Eastern, for the first time in like 50 years, is having a golf team again. So I'm pretty lucky that that happened while I was still here.
Now, did you help create that golf team, or was that something that was created by like staff members and other
So
students?
that's a good question. I actually did not have any input in that. But my freshman year, I remember I was emailing back and forth with these two people. One was the former president of the club golf team here, and he was really trying to get me to like start it back up again, but it just never ended up happening. I got more into like basketball, intramural basketball. I started working for them and just like playing it a lot, more than golf. But then when the team formed, it was drop basketball right back to golf because I think as of now it's my favorite sport. But yeah, no, I had no input in creation of the new team.
And looping back to that college decision process question, were
Hmm.
there any other reasons besides the physical education major and education that you picked Eastern?
It's funny you say that because I totally neglected to mention that my sister went to the school. She graduated a couple years ago, but that was a huge factor in my decision. Was she was there? She kind of showed me the ropes for everything, picking classes, just navigating the campus, stuff like that.
And looking back on it now as a senior, do you think Eastern was the right choice for you?
Um, I've had a lot of thoughts about this because I always think about what it would be like to have gone to a school down south and play golf all year round, but I don't think you're going to get a better education for my major than I did at Eastern. So for that reason, I think I made the right choice going with Eastern.
I saw something in the Woodbridge Town paper a couple months ago about you winning a golf tournament, was it right? Recently?
Yeah.
What got me to think of you to bring you on here because I saw your name in the town paper and I'm like, he'd be a good guest.
Well, thank you for bringing that up because that was a high moment of the season for me. but it was more my team because it was a team event. 6 players play. I think they take 4 or 5 of the scores. I'm not actually positive about that because it's different than it was in high school. But anyways, we have these 2 kids on our team. I wanted to mention their names, Ashton and Jonah. I've never seen 2 people hit a golf ball as far as these 2 kids in my life, and it's unbelievable. One of them was only a freshman last year when we were playing, and they just blow me away. They both shot not just under par, but I think in the 60s for their rounds. And yeah, I was somewhere 75 range, which is good for me, but yeah, they're really good. But yeah, that tournament it was against like a few schools from our conference. And with COVID, it was not the same experience as like a normal tournament would be, but it was still good to get a win regardless.
You see yourself playing professionally?
Unfortunately, I think that ship has probably sailed. But that being said, I wouldn't mind being involved with golf when I get older. I've worked at a golf course for the past like 3 or 4 years, and whether it be a head pro, which is technically a professional, but not in the respect, that I had always wanted to be professional, but head pro or GM or just working around there. I love that atmosphere, the environment, the people too. You get to meet so many new people. So even if I don't play professionally, I would love to be involved with golf in some way down the line.
And you kind of answered this question, but I'm still going to ask it. What do you see yourself doing after college, golf related or not?
So even though I am a senior, I still think my future is up in the air. I love phys ed, but that's actually not even a year-round job. So I definitely see myself working summers at some sort of golf course, if I can, wherever I can. But I don't know. I just see myself doing something longer term with golf down the road where it becomes my whole career job. But I don't know what that is yet. I don't know what the future holds. I'll just have to wait and see. But I definitely want to stay involved with golf however I can.
I think this is the most important question of the entire interview. Advice to younger golfers.
Yes. So for this one, my number one bit of advice would be when it comes to golfing, you got to just have fun when you're out there. Because too many times I see people that, whether it be they're forced out there by their parents, and they're just not enjoying the experience. That's going to create bad memories that when you play it in the future, either for a business or just with your buddies, you're going to think back to those bad experiences and then not like it or hesitate to like it, so on and so forth. I also see people overthinking. I was guilty of this a lot back in my younger days, and even still now. You're trying too hard to be perfect on the golf course, and sometimes you just got to let loose, have fun, and enjoy it out there. Enjoy the people you're with, enjoy the nature, because for those reasons, the people, the outdoorsiness of it all, golf is really like super fun. So I think young people should enjoy it while they're playing it, and let the wanting to go practice, wanting to compete come with the enjoyment.
Biggest strength in your golf game?
So for like a lot of golfers, my strengths are always changing. One day I'm hitting the driver good, then the next day I'm hitting it left and right. Relatively, I keep it within the tree line for the most part, but I'd say driving and like hitting long shots is the biggest strength of my game. Just because I played a lot of like athletic type sports involving hand-eye coordination, like baseball, like football for a little bit, like basketball. And that I think helps with the swinging hard part of hitting a driver, hitting a long shot, and being able to hit it like fairly precise. Because with those shots, you're able to miss maybe 5 yards left or 5 yards right. But when it comes to my biggest weakness, which would be putting, that you have to be so perfect and precise that there's a lot more to it than just having good hand-eye coordination. It comes down to practicing pretty much at the end of the day.
I don't know a lot about golf, but does height have to do anything with success in golf?
Not at all. I'd say the majority of the golfers on tour right now are below 6 feet. Definitely, like the majority are. Um, some of them are even like 5'5". Ricky Fowler. I don't know if you ever heard of him.
I've heard the name.
Yeah, he's one of the more popular guys because he's been successful, and I saw him in person once when I was like a freshman or sophomore in high school, and he was like my height, and I was not a very tall individual back then. And I remember even me and my dad were like, "Wow, that's kind of remarkable." But no, when in golf, that's the beauty of it. It's all about your technique and the practice you put in. So when you watch those guys, how good they are at the top, it's really you have to admire their technique and the work they put in. But that being said, there are guys like Phil Mickelson, who's 6'4", I think, or Dustin Johnson, who's 6'4", and their height, it does give them an advantage in some ways where they can hit it further because their leverage of their body. But at the end of the day, they still got to hit it straight and make putts like everyone else does.
Because I know that you're pretty tall, so that's why I asked that question.
Well, relatively. I mean, there's the two kids I mentioned before, Ashton and Jonah. Ashton is like around my height, but Jonah's like 6'3", 6'4". But Ashton, I'm pretty sure, has a better overall game than Jonah, even though Jonah hits it a little bit further.
Let's talk a little bit about pregame. Favorite pregame meal and music.
So for golf, a lot of times, so for the pregame meal, I usually go with a bacon, egg, and cheese because golf is like a morning sport. You know, the tee times are in the morning. But if it were to be in the afternoon, I always believe that pasta's the best pregame meal to go with. And then music, that's interesting because sometimes I like to listen to like classic songs like 2000. Well, not, I shouldn't say classic, but my friends make fun of me for listening to this sometimes, but like 2000s to 2010s, like pop punk hits, you know, Mr. Brightside, or I had it written down here, Sugar We're Going Down. Two absolute classics if you ever to look them up.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I like to listen to like really hard rap music because like there's nothing better than being on the driving range and like having my headphones in and it's like really hard rap music, and then you just look around and it's people in collared shirts and the khakis and it's all neat and proper. I like that feeling. It gets me fired up, you know, if I were to go into a competition.
Yeah, I find it as kind of a contrast, hard rap music to just people in collared shirts and khakis.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what I think too.
Any pregame superstitions?
So I actually thought about this one a lot. I don't really have any. I mean, I firmly believe in stretching before going out to golf, but I don't think that's a superstition. I think that's just a warm up. Um, Although I will say, I've probably played 98% of my golf rounds in my career with a hat on. So I'd say wearing a hat would be my superstition.
Now, since you mentioned stretching being a part of the warm up, I'm going to ask, what is a typical warm up for you on a day that you're golfing?
I would say once I'm like dressed and ready to go, once I'm at the course, I'll even say, um, first thing I like to do is stretch, uh, just like my legs mostly, you know, hamstrings. Then I'll do some torso stuff, maybe a little bit of arms, but just something, whatever feels tight, I try to loosen up. Um, then I'll take some swings to loosen up. Um, It's not too. I'm not too particular about it, but I definitely like to make sure that I'm not feeling tension anywhere. And then I just go start with putting and chipping because my swing, I've done it so many times that like I don't feel like I need to work on specific like positions in my swing too much before the round. It just kind of comes naturally. But putting and chipping, that's I want to make sure that's locked in and dialed in before the round starts. So I'd say my favorite routines focus a lot on that. Short game, stretching, and stretching.
Now, I know you touched upon golfers who influenced your game, but who is your favorite golfer currently?
I'm a huge Tiger fan, um, especially lately. You know, ever since his comeback, what happened to him stunk recently. Um, but if not Tiger, because I feel like Tiger is kind of an answer everybody says. I always liked John Daly growing up. Um, didn't resemble him in any way because he's big and I was little, but he wore these like funky looking pants. He swung it back real far. And I like that about him. And we had the same name. So I'd say those two are my favorites.
And is that the same answer for all-time golfers as well?
Yes, because those guys are actually John Daly, I think, is retired, or he's on like the old
Okay.
person tour now. And Tiger's getting up there too. But I'll do you this one. My favorite golfer that's like younger, upcoming now is Colin Murakawa. I think this is only his second year now. He played in California, the college. That's when I first heard about him, but his swing is just unreal. And he won a major tournament as a rookie, so I think he's got a lot of promise. I like his game, and I like his swing.
What nicknames do you have, if any, and what's the origin behind those?
Yeah, no, this is another one I had to think a lot about because I had one nickname that I gave myself, so I didn't think it counted, but I figured I'd bring it up anyways because it happened on a golf course. Um, but I called myself the Clock. Really stupid name, but I was like, I think 14 or 15 at the time. But the Clock is because I was playing well at the time, like probably two over through six holes, maybe a little better than that, but something that like it wasn't great, but it was good for me back then. And I remember saying like, "Oh man, everything is just so easy for me right now, and it's just coming like so easy. You should call me the Clock because everything's like clockwork for me." And I don't know if it was the fact that I was like blindly, arrogantly giving myself a nickname like that, or if my friends just appreciated my creativity in the moment. But the name kind of stuck, and like I remember kids from Orange because I'm not from Orange. You know, when the middle schools merged for high school,
Mm-hmm.
I remember they would like refer to me as Clock, and I was like, oh wow, but you have no idea I made that up and how stupid it would be. But that's really the only one. I can't really think of another one I have.
All right, so that was my last question for you. Other than this one that I ask every episode, who do you want to see on the series next?
So this is a tough one. The two names I had in mind were Bobby Kerpis because he was my co-captain for basketball. Um, and basketball is a huge part of my high school career, aside from golf. So I would say he'd be good to come on the show because I know he's playing in college now. But Ty Thomas is the big one
Mm-hmm.
because he is just unbelievable. I can't go on Twitter without seeing. Granted, I follow him on Twitter, so his highlights are there, but I can't go to Twitter without seeing his highlights. And the dude moves like an NBA player, like legitimately. He shoots it now from so deep. So yeah, I think he'll do big things. It'd be interesting to hear from him, but he's big time. It'd be a
Yeah,
tough one to get.
to see a kid come out of Amity, which is kind of a small school, and well, in a small town, not necessarily a small school, and become as good of a player as he is really interesting.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Like you said, we're not a big school. We're not known for basketball at all, but if you watch him play, you know he's something different.
All right. Well, this has been episode 7, and next week we will have another athlete on here.